KJ Methods YouTube channel. What I've decided to talk about today are the federal loan disclosures that have to be made when someone is purchasing residential real estate. I cannot tell you how many questions I get on the differences between these two federal laws entitled TILA and RESPA. There is so much confusion relating to the two. Now, I'm going to talk about the two laws and then talk about what you will potentially see today relating to these laws. Some of the tests still call it TILA and RESPA. Some of the tests now call it TRID because there was an amendment to the law back in 2015 which took these two laws and consolidated it into one document called a TRID. But let's go back. Initially, these laws were created so that consumers would be able to understand what the cost of the loan is. And initially, these loans were broken into two. One called TILA, Truth in Lending Act, and the second one called RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. So let's first start with TILA. The Truth in Lending Act, essentially the point of the act is so a consumer could compare the cost of credit when they are trying to get a loan. And so we used to say within 3 days of the application, they would have to be given this TILA statement, TILA lending, truth in lending. So everything relating to the loan, what the annual percentage rate is on the loan, what the payments are going to be on the loan, what the total cost of the loan is going to be. And you had to do that within 3 days of application. And then there were some other rules that went with it in terms of if the APR went up more than 1/8% before the closing date, things that are not going to really be applicable to you on the real estate exam. The other thing that we see is this regulation called Regulation Z. You've seen this on some of the exams. Well, this is all I want you to remember. Regulation Z goes along with TILA. So if you see Reg Z, we're talking about the Truth in Lending Act. And it gives us more specifics as to how you can advertise and a number of other things that are important if you are a mortgage lender, but not as important if you are just trying to take the real estate exam. It also goes to which loans TILA applies to. All right, so let's put that to the side. Next, we have what we call RESPA. RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Settlement. So RESPA is a bigger law in the sense of the kind of things that you have to disclose. It could include things relating to the loan, and it does, but it also includes the settlement costs. What are going to be the full closing cost of the loan? And again, within 3 days of application, the bank needed to give the person this RESPA statement called a good faith estimate. And we then look again right before the closing. The whole point of these federal laws is to see at the beginning what the estimated loan is going to be, and then right before you close to see if those numbers match to each other. So you can go from bank to bank to bank to compare all of the closing cost or all of the loan cost so that you know which bank to go to. Now, the other things that RESPA covered was impounds, no unreasonable impounds. You have to give the person a RESPA booklet. And it also says that under any federally funded loan, there are no kickbacks, meaning you cannot give people funds for things that they didn't do work for. If you're going to pay a person at the closing, such as an appraiser, let's say, for example, the appraiser actually appraised the house. And so you can pay them at closing. But if it's someone who did nothing, they cannot be paid on a closing statement. All right. Then we move to another statement called a HUD 1. Sometime you've heard this called a settlement statement. And what it said was before closing, one day before closing, you had to get a settlement statement. Again, the whole point of all of these laws is to make sure that you're getting statements at the beginning and then a statement at the end so that you can compare the cost. So you had an original TILA statement, a final TILA statement, a good faith estimate at the beginning under RESPA, and a HUD one at the end under RESPA. 4 different documents, 3 days, and all of these rules relating to it. Okay, but then we had the real estate market crash in 2008-ish, right? And so at that time, the Consumer Financial Protection Board was put into place to kind of, hey, come on, this is too difficult for people to even know what is going on. And I see it all the time in testing. Students do not remember what TILA, loan, RESPA, settlement goes to. So everyone was confused, probably except mortgage lenders and people who wrote the law, okay? But everybody else didn't know what was going on, and there was just much confusion. And so essentially the Consumer Financial Protection Board comes in, and they're going to try to make it easier for us to understand all of these documents. And what they did was consolidate all of these documents into just 2 documents. We took that original TILA statement and the good faith estimate, and we crunched them together, and we call that now a loan estimate. And it's simple. It says you're going to tell everything about the loan, you're going to tell everything about the closing costs. Within 3 days of application, you're going to give a loan estimate. Pretty simple, right? Now let's move towards the end. Right before closing, within 3 days of closing, you're going to give the person a closing disclosure, which encompasses that final TILA statement and the HUD one. And so we don't need to have those documents any longer. We've taken the 4 documents and consolidated it into 2. And we now call it a TRID, TILA, RESPA, integrated disclosure. So for some of the final exams that have not been updated, you still need to know the TILA, RESPA laws independently. But now you understand if you get to a state exam and you see TRID, we're pretty much talking about the same thing, but we're talking about post 2015. Well, I hope that helps clarify some of the differences between the laws, and now you'll be able to get those correct on your test. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining the KJ Method. And once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone you know who is trying to pass that real estate exam.